I just first want to start off by acknowledging the work of the DOL staff and my colleagues here at the table for the work that we do on Target Zero. So I'm going to cover specifically fatalities involving young drivers, first providing you with some background in our recent data, and then cover some of the research that's informed our action plans, and then I'd like to just highlight a few of our action plans today. So young drivers, 16 to 25-year-olds, are one of the priority ones in Target Zero. And it's because they're involved in 35% of our crashes, and they only represent 14% of our driving population. So they definitely are high in that area. They have the highest rate of crashes, speeding, and impairment, which is similar to the other age groups. But for motor vehicle crashes, it is the leading cause of death for 16 to 25-year-olds. Some of the things that we've done, and you were talking earlier about what else can we do. In the 16 and 17-year-olds, we did implement the intermediate driver's license, where there's certain restrictions on those drivers when they first become drivers because they're not as mature as the older drivers. And we saw some great impacts to that, but we're seeing that level off. And so as we talk about how do we move the needle now, I think that we've kind of taken the low-hanging fruit, and really to move the needle now, it's going to involve some really serious discussions about policy changes and potentially funding. So the next chart here shows, and Darren mentioned earlier that we ranked 5th in the nation for fatalities. For 16 to 25-year-olds, we also rank 5th in that age group. One of the areas there that we look at is best practices from other states. Very similar to the overall ranking, we have some states that just have different transportation systems available to them that are higher in rank than us. But we also studied worldwide kind of some of the impacts. And the United Kingdom, I think, is a great example where they are much lower than Washington, about half of Washington's rate. And so one of the things that you'll see in our action plan is we are looking at our drive testing and training because we think that's one of the big differences between like the United Kingdom and Washington is that they have a much more rigorous process that they put their drivers through before they can get their license. And then the final action plan that I'd share with you is a strategy of intervention. Our staff created a predictivity model that identifies what kind of how strategies impact the driver's behaviors, and looking at the earliest signs of their increased risk. And so we studied over 5 million drivers, and one of the things that we have determined under our predictivity model is that future collisions doubles as soon as the driver receives their first violation. So I think that's really key, is they double the risk of being involved in a fatality or a serious injury if they have a violation because their behavior is more risky. So one of the things we started to do is early warning letters for 18 to 21-year-olds, which is the highest group of fatalities. And we gave them basically a letter telling them that it doubles their risk of a car crash. And we point out the monetary, even though it's it could be a monetary lapse of judgment, it could also be a lifelong or life-ending tragedy. And we link them to more information. And so we have now had enough time under our belt to know whether or not those early warning letters have been effective. And we've seen very positive results. We saw actually a 13% reduction in subsequent traffic violations. And if you take our predictivity model, it would have resulted in it would translate to 42 less collisions and 14 traffic fatalities. So we're going to continue to monitor this, but that was something pretty easy to send out to those drivers, just increasing their awareness of the risk of their behavior.
So as far as you made reference to the English training and testing protocol, I mean, should we just adopt that off the shelf and steal it from the English, or what do you think?
I think that it's political too. That you get a lot of resistance from.
Well, we won't call it English. We'd call it. We call it the Sounders Plan or something.
I definitely think we have some opportunities to look at our policies, and we could strengthen them. But I think it will come with resistance from different stakeholders in looking at increasing the standards for some of those trainings.
We may do some things in the future to get to target zero that will involve controversy, but that's the only way we're going to get there.
And Governor, one of the trends we're seeing nationally now is that because of the requirement that 16 and 17-year-olds have training and the cost of the training, they're waiting until 18 to get their driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this age group that we're looking at is 16 to 25-year-olds. And so these 18-year-olds are getting their driver's license without with no training, basically.